My best friend exposed my secret crush and me to the entire school. My best friend outed me to my crush and the whole school. When did you know you were gay? That is the question most people get asked when they come out. Are you just pretending? Maybe you're just confused? I don't think that who you love should be anyone's business, nor should your sexuality be brought into question. But we live in this world, and people will never stop asking these questions, no matter how much we hope. I knew I was gay at a very young age. I had the classic symptoms. I wish I could tell that to my father. I cannot pinpoint the exact moment when I didn't care that so many girls wanted to be my Valentine in 3rd grade. Or was it when I would sneak into my parents' room and put on my mother's lipstick when no one was home? Back then, I learned to hide it. It ate me up like a worm every single day, but I knew that it was either that or risking facing my father's wrath. The day he caught me wearing my mother's high heels, he raged like a bull that had been unleashed. I didn't know what demons looked like, but the look in his eyes as he beat me, that was the look I think was in the devil's eyes. He didn't stop no matter how much I screamed. He kept on telling me that he would beat the sin out of me. Then there was my mother, blessed her heart, silent and standing in the corner, a blank look in her eyes. She held me after the ordeal. She held me as I kept on babbling, I will never do it again. I will never do it again. Even though my father had already left, probably to go and drink again, then return in the middle of the night and demand to know why the food my mother had made was cold, as if he hadn't sold the microwave to pay off his gambling debts. School was my happy place, the place where I could be myself, or at least the self that they knew. I couldn't be my true self, even at school, but at least I was liked by many. I wasn't popular, but at least I wasn't a social pariah. I had my best friend Eli who knew me inside out. He was also the only person who knew about my sexuality. I had told him when he had found my stash of yaoi, although I would have probably gotten away with it. Who doesn't read that addictive stuff? It felt good to have someone I was close to who knew and accepted me. When he had found out, I expected him to reject me. We were in a very conservative town, after all. Any whisper of something as controversial as sexuality would get me in a lot of trouble, and he would be guilty by association. In school, there were a few queer kids, but they hung out with the outcasts of the school. The cooler kids were from religious and conventional families. My crush was one of those kids, the popular one. In fact, he was the most popular guy in school. Timothy was one of the most fascinating people I knew. I know it all sounds like a cliche, but have you ever met anyone who is heartbreakingly gorgeous? If you have, then you know exactly what I mean. He was the golden boy, and he deserved that title. He had beautiful dark locks, amber eyes, and a sharp jawline. He was also tall with a lean body, a true Adonis, captain of the football team, editor of the school newspaper, and president of the school. He was too good to be true. I loved him from a distance, woke up every day excited to see his face, and went to sleep with thoughts of him in my mind. It was devastating in the fact that he was not mine, and he never would be. He broke my heart every day and mended it. Unrequited love is the worst, yet the best thing in the world. You feel safe and loving from a distance. You feel as if you have a part of them that no one else has, even if it's just a glance or a graze of the hand. You have it memorized and no one else can ever know. The thrill when you catch their eye and look away for fear that they will see your love written in your eyes. It's a high. Then there are the daily reminders that leave you broken when they have someone that they're dating and you wish that they would break up. My love for him bordered on insanity. Maybe it was so intense because it was the only pure thing in my life. My mother was tainted by my father, made into a hollow shell. My father was an axe cutting down anything that stood in his path. Eric was my best friend. He would never understand. This was why I did not tell him about my crush. I told him about my nights spent cursing the escapades I got up to when I sneaked out of the house. But Tim was my secret, my butterfly pressed between the pages of a book. But what is hidden in the dark will forever come to light. One can only keep themselves hidden for so long, as I would soon learn. One day we were sitting in the cafeteria. It was Valentine's Day and everyone was buzzing. Girls were holding bouquets of roses and guys had notes and presents. It was the most beautiful day of the year if you weren't single. Even Eli had gone on a date with some freshman girl. She had scurried off after dropping the note on our table, cheeks flushed. So, what are your plans for tonight? He asked. I'm going to draw a bit, then sleep, I said. Boring, he yawned. I gave him a death glare. That kid had an artistic bone in his body. He was about as logical and practical as one can be. Really, what are you going to be doing tonight then? I smirked. He looked down and avoided my gaze. It's not a relevant question, he said shortly. Right now, I'm asking unnecessary questions. I raised an eyebrow. Don't even start. The new bacteria that Simon and I have been looking at is unlike any you've ever seen. You will be so in love, he said. I rolled my eyes. He was crazy about science and math. He pretty much lived and breathed those subjects. Whatever. Anyways, what's in that blue envelope? Did you get a letter and not tell me? He asked, his eyes sparkling with glee. Of course not, bozo. I rolled my eyes. That envelope was my Valentine's Day letter to Timothy. I always wrote him one, but never sent it to him. I like to read them to myself at the end of the night, then rip them apart after, the things we do because of the madness that is love. Let us see, he said. No, I said, making to snatch the envelope from beside me. He got a hold of it. I would die. I don't know why, but I like to keep Tim as my little secret. Having anyone else find out would not help my situation, nor the fact that he was Ellie's brother make it better. Too late, he said it as he snatched it from me. My heart spiked as he opened the envelope. He started reading it aloud. Dear Tim, I hope that your day is filled with sunshine and roses. He didn't get to finish reading the sentence because at that moment, Amanda, one of the mean girls, snatched it from him. She started reading the story out loud in her shrill voice, and each word poured out of her mouth like molten lava. I sank further into my seat. This was starting to feel worse than going to school naked dream. Dear Tim, I hope that your day is filled with sunshine and roses, but I don't even know if you like those, so I hope that it's filled with anything that you love. I wish that I could give this letter to you, that I could tell you what is in my heart. I yearn for you. I really like you. But alas, I must settle for a few words on a page. You will never see. Happy Valentine's Day, love, Kelvin, she finished. A deafening silence filled the room. Then there were several reactions at the same time. There was laughter, shock, outrage, and so many other things. I caught a glimpse of Tim, and his face was paler than that of a Victorian ghost. I instantly got up and ran out the doors. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I felt as if I could collapse at any time. I kept on repeating to myself that it wasn't real. It had been a dream. But no matter how many times I pinched myself, I was hit by the fact that this was real. It was too early for the bus, I didn't have cash for a taxi, and there was no one to take me home. This left me with no other choice but to walk home. My house was a bit of a distance away, but I needed to get the hell out of school. Luckily for me, it was a Friday, so I didn't have school until Monday. But Monday would be the worst day of my life, where I would be walking to the gallows on Monday morning. I got home 40 minutes later, drenched in sweat and my stomach turning because of the anxiety I was feeling. I found my mother cleaning in the kitchen while humming her favorite song, Hallelujah by Leonard Cohen. Her face crunched up in confusion when she saw me. Hey there, you home so early? She asked. I got sick, I lied. Okay, go and rest in your room or we'll bring up some soup for you, she said. No, it's okay. You've been working hard all day. I'll take some medicine, then get some sleep, I said to her. I really felt for her. She worked hard from morning till night, and then she still had to deal with my dad. I really wish that we weren't in this situation. What could we do? We were dependent on him. We had to stay and face the abuse or risk it out in the big bad world. I made my way up to my room and threw myself on the bed. As soon as I got in the room, I stared up at the ceiling where the faded glow in the dark stars remained after so many years. I thought about everything that had happened at school and felt deep regret. Why did I fall in love in the first place? If it wasn't for this traitorous heart, I wouldn't be in this position. All I wanted was love, but I guess love didn't want me. It hurts sometimes. It got so bad that it felt like physical pain. The pain of being lonely cuts deeper than any knife. Yet you carry on, hoping that one day your person will come and erase the pain. So you fall in love with people you can never have and hurt yourself some more. When does this vicious cycle that is love end? So much pain just because of an organ that pumps blood. Why me? Why love? This cursed my heart. How do I refrain myself from its clutches? Those heartbreaking thoughts raced through my mind as I fell asleep. It was like I barely slept. I opened my eyes. What seemed like 2 minutes later could have been, except it was dark outside. My throat felt very dry, so I went to the kitchen to get some water. I opened the window to let some light in, and to my luck, Tim was just jogging past my house. I dropped the curtain before he could see me. It was a stab to the heart. It hurt that it felt relieving to see his face. The rest of the weekend was uneventful. My dad wasn't home for the whole weekend, which meant that we had some peace for a short period of time. Mom made my favorite food, and we played several board games. It was nice to hear her laugh after so long. The shadows in her eyes faded for a while, and the glimmer of light shone through. It was like we were in our own little world, where the big bad world could never be able to touch us. It helped to distract me from what was coming on Monday. I wasn't going to skip school. Already, my mom had been called about my absence on Friday, so I had no choice but to show up. I braced myself, wore my armor, which was just a mantra that I kept on repeating in my head. Who you are is not an illness. Who you love is not a disgrace. In all honesty, I needed to be reminded of that. I was going to need it with all that I was going to go through. They didn't waste any time. Early in the morning, the classic slurs and pranks began. Now, I knew what it was like for all the other queer kids. I had never given much thought to them when I was safe in my false straightness. Today, I knew how they felt. The notes in the locker, the sneers, the jokes in class that were as unoriginal as ever. It was just a specific group of people, the most popular kids in school, the ones who belonged to reputable, traditional families. As far as homophobia went, the apple didn't fall far from the tree. My best friend Eli was with me through it. Things were still awkward between us, but I didn't blame him for what had happened. He had been the one who had been holding the paper when Amanda had snatched it, but he hadn't been the one to read it out loud to everybody. We were going to talk as soon as everything had settled down. I was sure he felt a certain way about me keeping my crush on his brother from him. On the other hand, I had been avoiding Timothy like the plague. Every time I saw him, I turned around and went back the way I came. I wondered what I was going to say to him if we ever were alone. One day at the editorial meeting, our editor-in-chief, Miss Bones, kept the two of us back to discuss our articles. I felt like running away at that moment. I was aware of everything about him. To my chagrin, he was so close to me that I could smell his cologne. It was all I could do to stop myself from collapsing from a heart that was beating too fast. As soon as the meeting was over, I sprinted out of the room and was turning the corner before he had a chance to talk to me. I didn't know how long I was going to keep running. The next day, I was running late for class. The bell had rung twice already and the halls were empty. The night had been a bit eventful and I hadn't gotten any sleep. I'd overslept and showed up late to school. I was running down the hallway when I bumped into a brick wall. Except it wasn't a brick wall. This I saw as I looked up at the tall, imposing figure standing over me. Today was not my day at all. Of all the people who I had to bump into today, it had to be him. Why did life have to do me dirty like this on the day that I was looking like a mess? I had to bump into my crush. Talk about horrid luck. I ran my fingers through my hair and attempted to smoothen it out. "Why are you late?" he said in a stern voice. I started. I overslept. I said, looking down. That didn't happen again. "Next time it does, detention," he said. "Okay," I said, starting to walk away in relief. Yet he recognized me. This was wonderful news. I couldn't take his intense gaze any longer. If he remembered me, "Wait, I know you? You're the guy who wrote the letter to me?" He suddenly said. I stopped dead in my tracks. I spoke too soon. I was busted, and there was no way that I was getting out of this. It was D-Day for me. I slowly turned around to face him. My palms were sweating, my cheeks felt hot, and my mouth felt dry. "Yes, it's me," I confessed. There was no use running away from it. He knew who I was, and I knew what he was about to say to me. I had been running away from the truth for far too long. I had to face it now. As they like to say, the shit had hit the fan. With my heart pounding like a drum in my chest, I braced myself for whatever Timothy was about to say. The moment of truth had arrived, and there was no turning back. Timothy studied me for a moment, his amber eyes searching my face as if trying to read my thoughts. I could feel the weight of his gaze, and it made my anxiety spike. What was he thinking? What would he say next? I knew it. He finally said, breaking the tense silence between us. His voice was surprisingly calm, devoid of anger or disgust. "I had a feeling the letter was from you, Kelvin." My heart sank and I couldn't help but feel a mixture of relief and fear. Relief because he didn't seem angry, but fear because I didn't know what this revelation meant for our friendship or whatever we had. "I'm sorry, Tim," I stammered. "I never meant for any of this to happen. It was a stupid crush, and I didn't think Amanda would." He interrupted me with a small smile, a rare sight from the usually stoic Timothy. "Hey, it's not your fault. You can't control what other people do." I blinked in surprise. This was not the reaction I had expected. Timothy was known for his popularity and his seemingly perfect life, and I'd always imagined he would be repulsed by my feelings. But here he was, being understanding and kind. "Listen," he continued, "I appreciate your honesty. It takes guts to do what you did, even if it didn't go as planned." I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. "You're not mad?" He shook his head. "No, Kelvin. Why would I be mad? It's not like you did anything wrong. If anything, I admire your courage." My heart swelled with a mix of emotions. Gratitude, relief, and an overwhelming sense of fondness for this incredible person standing before me. "Thank you, Tim," I said, my voice filled with sincerity. "You have no idea how much that means to me." He grinned. "Well, maybe we can turn this around. Use it as a chance to educate people and challenge stereotypes." I blinked, surprised by his suggestion. "You mean like raise awareness about LGBTQ issues?" Timothy nodded. "Exactly. We can show people that love is love no matter who it's between, and that being true to yourself is something to be proud of." I couldn't help but smile at the thought. Maybe, just maybe, something positive could come out of this mess. Perhaps I had underestimated Timothy and the potential impact we could have together. As we continued our conversation, it became clear that Timothy was not only open-minded, but also incredibly empathetic. He shared stories of friends he knew who were part of the LGBTQ community and the challenges they faced. I felt a deep connection with him. one that went beyond my initial infatuation. Over the following weeks, Timothy and I began working on a school project together, focusing on promoting tolerance and acceptance in our community. It was an unexpected turn of events, but it felt like the universe had given us an opportunity to make a difference. As we spent more time together, our friendship grew stronger. I couldn't deny that my feelings for Timothy were still there, but they had evolved into something more profound. A genuine bond based on trust, understanding, and a shared mission to make our school a more inclusive place. Little did I know that this unexpected journey of self-discovery and friendship would lead me to a path of acceptance and love I had never imagined possible.